quiet time. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Fruitful Friday, woo! Where I share my quiet time nuggets with y'all. In today's Fruitful Friday, we're gonna be back in Exodus because Exodus is lit, and we're gonna be looking at the aftermath of how God called Moses and Aaron to go and tell Pharaoh to let his people go. I know last week we read Exodus chapter 2 and we saw how Moses was tripping and he didn't check himself before he wrecked himself, and he wrecked himself all the way to Midian. And in the following chapters after that, we see how he sees a burning bush, how God calls him, hey, you gotta get out of Midian, it's time to go back to Egypt and let my people go, okay? And so he goes, and he's very insecure, mind you. He spends about a good portion of, I believe it's Exodus chapter 3, arguing with God about how he can't do this. Like, you've called the wrong person, because he's insecure and he stutters and all this other stuff that God really is like, bro, what you even talking about? Like, yeah, you have all these issues, but I'm God, so you got this, okay? That's literally how he's like. Picking it up in chapter 6, where after the first time they go and tell Pharaoh, hey, let my people go, how the response is basically no, and he makes the Israelites work harder than they needed to, honestly, and everyone's mad, and he's like, God, why'd you call me to do this? And God's telling him what's up. Let's pick it up in verse 1. We're reading the Message translation today. God said to Moses, now you'll see what I'll do to Pharaoh. With a strong hand, he'll send them out free. With a strong hand, he'll drive them out of this land. God continued speaking to Moses, reassuring him, I am God. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the strong God, but by my name, God, I am present. I am not known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the country in which they lived as sojourners. But now I've heard the groanings of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians continue to enslave, and I've remembered my covenant. Therefore tell the Israelites, I am God. I will bring you out from under the cruel harbor of Egypt. I will rescue you from slavery. I will redeem you, intervening with great acts of judgment. I'll take you as my own people, and I'll be God to you. You'll know that I am God, your God, who brings you out from under the cruel hard labor of Egypt. I'll bring you into the land that I promised to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and give it to you as your own country. I am God. Okay, so here God is reassuring Moses that what he's doing is possible because he's God, right? Moses was not having it. He was so upset that the Israelites were not listening to him, but God is like, hey, no. This was step 1 out of probably step 50, okay? Y'all just went and did this the first time. Like, it's possible. I promised you that I am going to give y'all this land. I'm going to get you guys to this land and out of Egypt, okay? But you just gotta trust and obey. It's honestly really simple. God is the fix for everything. And I know a lot of the times people can be like, okay, well, if God is so awesome and stuff, he's so good, then why does he let bad things happen? And to that, the answer is really simple. God either allows things to happen or he makes things happen. And if he allows things to happen, that means somebody else has got to be making stuff happen, in which that somebody else is Satan, right? So sin is in the world. There's bad stuff going on, right? And God allows those things to happen in order to test our faith and be like, hey, how are you going to react to this? How are you going to respond? Are you going to trust in me and the promises that I've explained to you in the Bible and trust that I'm going to get you out of these situations? Or are you going to fall into despair and go back to your sin? It's to build our character, build our perseverance, and give us hope that things will be okay. So let's see how the Israelites respond when Moses brings this encouragement from God. But when Moses delivered this message to the Israelites, they didn't even hear him. They were that beaten down in spirit by the harsh slave conditions. So we see here that the Israelites are, in fact, letting their situations take them out spiritually. They're forgetting the God that they serve, the God that has directed them in their whole life. Like, this is like their God, right? And so they're not even trying to hear the encouragement. They're not even trying to get their faith built up. And they're discouraged, and we can't let that be us. We can't let that be us, because if we allow situations to stop us from doing what God has called us to do, then nothing's gonna get done. And let's see how that plays out in the next verses. Then God said to Moses, go and speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that he will release the Israelites from his land. Moses answered God, look, the Israelites won't even listen to me. How do you expect Pharaoh to? And besides, I stutter. But God again laid out the facts to Moses and Aaron regarding the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt. and he again commanded them to lead the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. So here we have a classic case of discouragement breeds discouragement. Moses is discouraged now because the Israelites are discouraged because they're still in their situation, right? And so everyone's just discouraged. And here, this is why it's super important to not let our situations discourage us and instead turn to God and trust what he's saying and trust his plan, because if everybody's discouraged, nobody's getting out of the situation. Imagine, like, if everyone was just discouraged, how is that going to help them, be freed, right? If Moses was too discouraged to never listen to God and is called to bring him out, bring his people out of Egypt, how was anybody going to get out, right? And it brings me a little bit of encouragement to see that God was laying out the facts and commanded them again, even though Moses was super faithless, because it helps me to see that, man, Moses screwed up a lot. However, God didn't revoke the calling for his life. God was like, yes, you're doing very poorly right now, and that's okay, because I'm still calling you. You're going to be the one to lead the people out. God's call is irrevocable. He calls each and every one of us, first of all, in Matthew chapter 28, to go and make disciples of all nations, right? That call is irrevocable, but he also calls other people even further than that to lead other people, and if he's calling, then that he's not trying to take that away, because he specifically called you to do so, right? And you might be thinking, well, I don't know why God would call me, or I have no hope left, my situation's the way it is. Well, I encourage you to have somebody to build that faith up. And in order for you to do that, DM me. Instagram handle is right here. Don't get you squared away with the Bible study. There is hope. There's always hope. And maybe you just need somebody to sit down and open the scriptures with you in order to show you that hope, that plan, that calling that God has for you that's irrevocable. So, that's Fruitful Friday, and to God be all the glory.